Yo, you're listening to Cartoons versus COVID, the only podcast where we destroy COVID using cartoons.
That's right, Chris. I'm the Gruppeteer, and welcome back to another episode of Cartoons vs. COVID, the only podcast where we destroy COVID with cartoons. My guest today is Chris Houghton, the co-creator of Big City Greens on Disney Channel with his brother Shane. He is also the illustrator of the graphic novel Reed Gunther, as well as working on shows like Wander Over Yonder, Gravity Falls, and Harvey Beaks. Chris, thank you very much for coming on the program today.
Griffin, thanks for having me. What an intro. Wow, wait. Thanks for catching me up.
Thank you.
Like, oh, yeah, that did happen.
Just to make sure you remember, yeah. And, of course, Cartoons vs. COVID is always to help raise money for those fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, especially those working at the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center up here in beautiful Manchester, New Hampshire. If you are at all able, please check the links in the description below for the CDC donation network, as well as the Dartmouth Hitchcock donation network up here in Manchester. Please donate, please. I would really appreciate it. Chris.
Me too. That's awesome, Griffin. That's part of the reason I wanted to do this. I think that's great you're doing that, man.
No problem. So, Chris, I would love to start off with the thing that I got to ask everyone is, what have you been doing to stay sane during the quarantine, if anything?
Yeah. Oh, my God. I think that's all I've been doing during quarantine and is trying to stay sane. Yeah. Here's a couple of things I've been doing that I think have worked. Mm-hmm. I don't really check the news, first and foremost. Maybe once a day in the morning, kind of get the highlights. Mm-hmm. And then that
highlights
goes away.
In parentheses, yeah.
Yeah, the highlights, the lowlights.
Yeah.
And then that kind of goes away. I want to stay informed, but at an arm's length.
Not depressed. Yeah.
Exactly, not depressed. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. I got off social media a few months before quarantine, just kind of coincidentally. I thought, you know what? I think this will be speaking about staying sane. I thought, this isn't helpful right now. This isn't helpful for me. So I got off social media. I have to say it's been great during quarantine.
Really?
It feels a little more isolating. That would be the negative, a notch for the negative column. But the pros are there's less input, mm-hmm. less waves. Cats. I got two of them. I got two cats. I highly recommend a cat. Not one of mine, I like mine, but go out and find yourself a cat. Bring them home, her home. They're fun. They don't really do anything. They don't worry. They don't care about much. I think they're good role models to have right now.
They're like animators, in a way.
Yeah. Actually, that's a fair point. I'm married. I'm lucky enough to have a spouse that we're just in it together, and checking in on our friends who are single, who are living alone. I think we're all doing quarantine at different levels of difficulty. If this was a video game, that's the big things. I've been gardening a lot. I'm kind of like some mix between Cricket and Bill Green right now. I'm like barefoot every day, and I'm checking on my tomatoes, and
no blue potatoes, I hope. But
yeah, right. Cross my fingers. You never know when one's gonna sneak up on you. So
I'm glad to hear you've been keeping busy. But I'll admit, when I heard you say cats, I was like, he hasn't been watching the music cats. I was so afraid.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You need to watch Cats.
I judge the time of day by what amount of cats I could watch. Like if someone's like, can you be here by 2:30? I'm like, that's about 3 watchings of Cats away. Yeah.
I'm sure I think I can do 2. I can't do earlier than 2. You need a minimum of 6 hours of Cats. No, I haven't seen Cats. Maybe I should watch it. My wife and I have been watching lots of movies during the quarantine. Sometimes one movie a night, and
really?
That's if we keep that up, that's 7 movies a week. That adds up a lot. So we're watching some weird movies, and Cats. I think Cats. It's time for Cats.
It might be time for Cats. You're in that stage of your relationship where you can do Cats together.
You're in love when you can sit down with a
together.
special someone and watch Cats. Yeah, that's good.
That means a lot. My girlfriend and I are not at that stage yet. I think I have to ask her parents.
Don't rush it.
I know. I would never. Without her father's blessing, I would never ask to watch Cats.
Smart. It's smart. Take it slow.
So you have worked, like I said, on so many wonderful shows, and you have a very long career, as a matter of fact, for somebody who's in the younger stages of,
Yeah, what
I
happened? I
guess.
feel like an old man.
But before we get into your professional career, I'd love to take it back to St. John's, Michigan, where you and your brother Shane, who's the co-creator, are both from, which I was interested to find out as the mint capital of the United States. Have you been to the Mint Fest in
Oh,
St. John's before?
oh, Griffin. Oh, you're bringing me back. I'm like that ratatouille fella, just took that
It's just
bite. Yeah, like, okay, so the Mint Festival is a big
right.
deal in St. John's. It always was, and it always will be.
Pitch it to me. Pitch me the Mint Festival.
Okay,
Why should
so
I go?
yeah, you should go because, well, it's the eighth wonder of the world for
Hmm.
one thing, and we all have a bucket list in a finite amount of time,
Of
and
course.
you should make this a priority. But there's a wonderful energy to Mint Fest. It's St. John's in a lot of ways. Like I love Parks and Rec, and it's kind of similar to Pawnee in a way. Like
Mm.
it's a small town, and with small towns come this great camaraderie. A lot of people just doing their work and trying to make a good life. And so the Mint Festival every summer, the mint gets harvested around St. John's. We had
Yeah.
mint fields all around our house. It smelled amazing,
Really?
driving by. Yeah, and then the Mint Festival is, I think it's a 3-day event. Oh gosh, I hope I'm getting this right. Oh, I'm so nervous about all the
Fact checkers say it's
yeah, the
wrong. I
Mint
don't know.
Festival fact checkers.
Yeah.
They're an ornery bunch. But there's a Mint pageant. There's a Little Miss Mint, and then there's a Mint Queen, and that's a big deal. If you
Yeah.
win either one of those competitions, you are in the Mint Festival parade, which is a
Really?
big deal. They throw out candy. When you're a kid, I always felt like there's two types of parades you'd go to:
Mhm.
parades that threw out candy, and then parades that didn't.
Yeah.
And it was very important to know which ones were which.
Which one's
So
through the candy? Yeah.
the Mint Festival throws candy. It's a big
Mhm.
deal. And then the Mint Festival is like it's kind of like a art fair, farmers market type thing. Everyone has booths. And when I was in college, I used to set up a caricature booth and draw caricatures
Really?
at the Mint Festival. And yeah, oh my God, there's like cows they bring in that they have like a porthole in their side. Have you heard of
What?
that?
What
Oh,
do
like
you
a
what do
like
you
a
mean?
s- I'm not joking, like a plastic submarine porthole. This is
It's
upsetting.
a living cow?
It's a living cow, and it's like an experiment that they do for certain cows. I can tell by your
What are you
face this is
talking about? I
highly
have no idea what
disturbing.
you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yep. So hold on, folks. I'm only halfway
Okay,
there.
all right.
You can open up this porthole in the cow, and the cow's fine. The cow, I have to
Yeah, no, I bet he's loving it.
say,
He's
the
getting
cow's
mint out of it,
fine.
everything.
And the farmer, this would be a thing they do for kids. I don't know if they still do it now. It's a
Yeah.
different time, but they'd be like, yeah, this is a cow. We can check on how the cow is digesting things, and what we learn from this cow can be applied to like the whole herd.
Yeah.
But the farmer, I'm
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm soldiering on despite all of the warnings your face is giving me by
No,
the
no,
way.
no. I
But
like the cow. I just want to know
yeah,
what's going on here.
yeah, no, and so the farmer would like show what was in the cow's stomach
Mhm.
to all the kids, and
Right.
and you'd learn about digestion.
So
I'm
you
not
and
even
David
kidding.
Cronenberg are both from St. John's,
Yeah,
Minnesota,
it was.
Michigan. All
Have you ever
right.
seen? Oh, now I'm blanking. What's that Harmony? What's his face movie? Gummo.
Oh.
Some Gummo vibes here, but
Don't
there was
cows have
a.
like five stomachs though, right? And don't they like put magnets in one cow's stomach so all the like metal or whatever they eat collects right there?
Oh, maybe they told us that during the porthole demonstration, and I
You're
was
too
too distracted
traumatized.
by
Yeah.
the farmer sticking his hand in a cow's stomach and then showing the kids, "Look, kids, this is what it looks like," and we all
Really.
went, "Wow." Yeah. There was
Do
also a
you?
thing you could bet on like a large chessboard.
Mhm.
It was the Miss Peppermint Plop, I think, and you would bet like a roulette table,
Yeah.
and whatever square the cow pooped on, that person that
What?
person won the pot.
Wait, what? The cow just like
Yep.
walked around like And then when
Yeah,
the cow just crapped, they gave it
and you,
give you a prize for it.
and you sat in bleachers like the Coliseum. Yeah, it was they were the gladiators of our day. And
I
yeah,
love
I
that.
never won. It's very upsetting. It's hard to guess where a cow is going to let loose.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I expected you to say it was just some festival,
Listen,
and that I was going to be like, oh yeah, that's cool, and then we'd move on. But now I
listen.
want to go to the Mint Festival. Like I
I'm not messing
legitimately want
around.
to go to the
I'm
Mint
not messing
Festival.
around. Once we're all through this and we can travel again, and your next vacation comes up, and you're like, where am I going to go
It's gonna.
in
I
about
know.
June? Yeah, check
St.
out the
John's,
Mint
Michigan.
Festival. It gets crazy.
Brilliant. How old were you when you permanently moved from St. John's?
Uh-huh. I was 18. Born and raised, and then
Yeah.
moved to Detroit when I was 18 for art school.
Yeah. Um, on the subject of odd fairs in our hometowns, my
Yeah.
hometown has the world famous pumpkin regatta, and what it is they're gigantic. Like farmers in New Hampshire grow giant pumpkins, and when I say giant pumpkins, I mean 4 to 500 pound pumpkins.
Oh my good
Right?
Lord.
They're gigantic.
Big
They're
boys.
they're big. They're chunky boys. And
Yeah.
what people do is you can pay enough money that you buy the pumpkin, carve it out, and then put a motor on it. And we have this
Yeah.
river that goes through the middle of our town, and you have to get in it, and people decorate it and everything. My dad used to
Oh
do
my
it,
God.
and they get in it, and they like bring their pumpkin all the way up the river, and then all the way back down the river. And it's a race to see who can do it first. And people buy like water guns, and people like in the stands have like little pumpkins and throw them at people. Like they throw
What?
actual pumpkins at people while they're like trying to maneuver their boats. It's
Because
like
they want to
perfect.
distract the other teammates so that their pumpkin can win, kind of
No, no,
thing?
no. So the people in the pumpkins have water guns. The people who are watching have actual pumpkins that they just throw, like you
Oh,
said, the Coliseum. They just throw
okay.
pumpkins.
So people, but let's back up a second. People are in these pumpkins. They're riding in the
Yeah.
pumpkin.
So a pumpkin itself, if you carve it out, it's
Yeah.
buoyant. So especially if it's this size,
Okay.
it's buoyant. Now it is buoyant, and I'm doing for those at home, I'm doing quotation marks on buoyant because most of the time, if you put too much in it, it's gonna get weighed down. And since people decorate them, they get weighed down really
Wow.
easy. So sometimes, yeah, the pumpkins sink, and you got to watch the guy like in his Jack Skellington costume swimming around the
This is
Tadpole River.
great.
I know.
And this sounds a little more wholesome. You know,
Yeah,
there's no,
there's less cow stomachs.
yeah. Although I will say this, Griffin, and I mean no disrespect, no educational value in this regatta of yours.
I
Okay,
guess so.
I learned a thing or two.
I don't know. Did you know before today that you could float in a pumpkin?
I did not. That's true.
That could save your life. Just saying.
Consider me educated. I've learned something. That's amazing. That sounds great.
Brilliant. So
Yeah.
I know that you and Shane hold St. John's very close to your heart, and I know that a lot of big city
Yeah.
greens comes from your experiences. Yours going to Detroit and Shane's going to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, me living in a small town as well, there's not a lot of incentive to go towards a more the route of an entertainer. You know, like there are people here who just do the jobs that their fathers do. They're loggers. They're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, whatever.
Yeah.
Mint farmers, I suppose.
Right.
How did you and your brother as well find your calling in the entertainment industry in a environment that didn't exactly harbor such a taste for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because both my parents aren't. My dad was a firefighter and a paramedic, and then had his own business for a while, where he was basically like a hazmat consultant, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom and worked as a secretary for the school system. So neither one of them were necessarily like in creative fields for sure, but I don't know. There was a lot of humor in my family. Everyone was really funny, and I think there was a it was encouraged to be funny, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Both my grandmas are really funny, and I think a mixture between that, and my parents always supporting, whatever us there was three boys, us three boys kind of wanted. They supported that, and then honestly, like I went to a good school. There was the St. John's Public Schools. I went through that program, and I never thought at the time that it was anything really special. You know, it's like everyone kind of hates their own school, I think, in
Yeah.
middle school and high school and stuff. But looking back, and shortly after I graduated high school, I was like, wow, this is a great program. A lot like a great theater program. They had art classes. And I don't know, I think I always had an environment to be creative, and so I did. I'm not really sure.
Did you
Yeah.
always want to be, work in the creative field, or was there a time when you wanted to be, I don't know, firefighter or something?
I thought about that. I think a lot of people do. Like, I want to do what my dad did, or I
Yeah.
want to do what my mom did. But for like a hot second, I mean, my dad, he worked as a paramedic, and we drive around Lansing, and he even still, he's like, oh, a man was murdered there. Oh, I remember a stabbing there. Like it's like this horrible, walk through memory lane. And so very quickly, it was like, yeah, I don't think I'm cut out for that.
Yeah.
And but Yeah, I think I always wanted to be in entertainment. As a kid, I'd put on my church shoes and just tap dance. And
Hmm.
I was the youngest of three boys, and I was always singing, and I'd just stand up at the dining room table, and I used to like lift up my shirt and make my belly button talk, and just get everyone, I just
Yeah.
lived off of people laughing. And,
Yeah.
and so I think, yeah, I think it always felt natural, yeah, it's weird to think like, are we born, are we all born creative and we lose some of it, or does it take an encouraging parent or a teacher or something? And I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think I had a lot of those things, and
Yeah.
so it was easy to go that route.
Mm. And part of big city greens outside of the your close ties to excuse me, St. John's, is the
Yeah,
close ties to family. All the greens, of course, are very close, even if some of them are recently, incarcerated. And
yeah,
what I find interesting about it is that it is born from a place of community. You and your brother work together for creative endeavors. You met your wife at a college for performing art. Do you find art
yeah.
for you something that brings people closer together and helps you form stronger relationships?
It's a good question. These are good questions, Griffin. I
My mom
like.
wrote them for me. So.
She's very smart.
I know, I know.
Yeah, that's great. Gosh, I don't know. I think yeah, creatives, I think just creativity does bring people together. I've never really thought about that, but as a kid, us three boys, we were out in the country, so the three brothers, we played together more than we did with our friends because that was
Mhm.
harder to get together with our friends. Like, you had to call their parents and set
Yeah.
that stuff up. So the three of us, we all drew, we were all drawing, we were all we like music. We used to like record, radio shows on old cassette tapes, and always putting on puppet shows and making comics. And so just very creative. And definitely brought us together. And then, yeah, same with my wife. Like when I went to college, I was so dead set on like, I'm going to work.
Hmm.
Leaving a small town to go to like a big city, to go to a private, bougie, fancy, schmancy art school.
Hmm.
I knew like how, like in a way, ridiculous that looked, to
Yeah.
maybe to just that kind of world. And so I was just determined to succeed. And so I went to college, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna work my ass off. And and part of that was like, I'm not gonna have a girlfriend. Like, I'm not gonna waste my time. Like, I've
Women
got
are a
to focus.
distraction to
That's
me.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. I had this kind of, and it wasn't anything other than just, that's how serious I was about
Yeah, it wasn't
my
cynical at all. Yeah.
no, no, not at all. And but I met this amazing girl, and we clicked. It was sophomore year, and we were friends for a while and started dating. And yeah, like talking about creativity, I think one of the things that drew me to Cassandra was her creativity. Like we were both in illustration, we were both illustration majors, and she just thought very differently from me, and it was so interesting to me at the time, and still is now. Like we just think differently, and there's stuff that she does that I wish I could do creatively, and the way she thinks, and I think she she sees that about me. I hope she sees it about me.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that's a great question. I think, yeah, the creativity definitely brought us together, and then the family themes in the show are definitely based off of my childhood. You know,
Mhm.
just growing up in a small town. My grandparents were close. I had some aunts and uncles close by, and then every summer we'd go visit my mom's mom, my grandma Alice, in New Jersey, and we'd go spend time with my mom's side of the family. So
Mhm.
yeah, family was huge. It's kind of ironic that I moved away from it all to go to LA and write a TV show about family.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just still is really important, but was so a part of my childhood.
Yeah. And like I said, it did quite literally come into the show in and of the fact that you and your brother work on it together. You were both the co-creators. Do
Yeah,
you and
absolutely.
Shane as brothers, because I'll be completely honest, I don't really um, know a lot of people who created a TV show with their brothers, or a lot of brothers who
Yeah.
really work together in the creative field. Like the Coens and the Safdies are all I can think of at the top of my
Right?
head.
It's got Duffer Brothers. Are those the
Oh, the Duffer Brothers
Stranger
too.
Things guys?
Yeah,
I
and the
always get them mixed.
Russos too. But
Russos. Yeah.
I,
Yep.
I, di-
Yep.
I digress. What I mean
Right.
is,
But there's not many. You're right. You're right.
yeah, but what I mean is, do you find it easier or harder to work with your brother because you are so close and so succinct in your mind?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think Shane and I, we didn't think about it much until like recently, now that we like do interviews and people ask us.
Hmm.
We've been working like professionally together now for like over 10 years, which is
Yeah.
wild to think about. But it happened organically. Like, in high school, we'd be in theater together, and we were in bands together, and then Shane started getting really into film, and he'd cast me as an actor, in his little
Hmm.
short films and stuff. But yeah, I think now, like, I think our our brotherhood, our ties as siblings,
Yeah.
I think it's always helped in the sense of like we've got each other's backs. We also we know each other very well, so it just makes communication a lot easier in a lot of ways. Whenever you click with someone real well, you can kind of just you don't even have to say certain things or finish certain
Yeah.
sentences. It's like, yeah,
They
I
they
got
can
it, got
just
it,
read
got
your
it.
mind like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just kind of in sync. And then I think what also, has helped just our partnership is we actually are pretty different. Like we think very differently
Hmm.
and yet the same. I've always said like, oh, Shane is we're so similar and yet we're like so different. It's like we just I think we overlap in the areas that matter in terms of like what we care about in storytelling and like our values and kind of the core stuff. But
Hmm.
then a lot of other things we don't share similarities in, and I think that's what makes us a good partnership. He has skills that I don't have, I have skills that he doesn't have,
Hmm.
and it's because of that we can kind of fit together
Yeah.
better.
And you were talking about how you and him just started working about 10 years ago. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, but it was on the graphic novel I mentioned before, Reed Gunther, right? You and him. He was
Yeah.
the writer and you the illustrator.
Yes, yeah,
Hmm.
and actually, it's funny you bring that up because we've been working together then for like 13 years because
Yeah.
we started Reed Gunther. I had started it on my own in art school. In art school, I was very much just like an illustrator. I wasn't interested very much in like writing. I was interested in jokes and stuff, but I just wanted to draw and I just wanted to get work as an
Yeah.
illustrator.
Yeah.
And so I started this comic, and I just it was about a bear riding cowboy, and it was done for this little independent like anthology that a guy I knew was putting together, and so I would just do these short stories, and the writing was not good because I just had no real interest in writing at the time, and Shane saw that, and for Christmas one year, I think this maybe like 2008 or something, he gave me a script for what would be a first full length, issue, a real comic book,
Hmm.
because all the stories I had done were just little 6, 7 page short stories. And because he was in film school and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and I was going into art school, and I was figuring out what I wanted to do, and it took us a while to kind of settle into like the roles we have now.
Hmm.
Initially, yeah, he was just writing, and I was just drawing, and that was great. Like it was great
Yeah.
for that for the comic book, and I think as we started to do more together, you know, he liked being involved in the artwork, and I liked being involved in the writing, and we liked talking about character a lot, and we both kind of realized he was like in film school, and he's like, I want to be a writer, and I realized I was like, I want to be a storyteller, some kind of visual storyteller,
Yeah.
and so then we were kind of off to the races, and really we did 10 issues of Reed Gunther, and
Mm.
we pitched it to all these comic book companies, and we were real scrappy, like literally selling comic books out of our car and going to different comic conventions,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you know,
I was reading about. I have a lot of admiration for the fact that you are very much a self-starter. You would drive all the way to like North Carolina and like sleep in
yeah,
a tent and stuff to sell your
damn,
comics and stuff.
yeah.
Like,
How do you know
like,
that?
do you find yourself as somebody who is driven to start things, or somebody who's driven to improve things that are already being made?
I think I like both. You
Yeah.
know, I think about like I'm jumping ahead, but like my experience on Gravity Falls. You know,
Mhm.
I was all just support. You know,
Yeah.
whatever Hirsch wanted or whatever the show was doing, like I wanted to contribute because I just so loved the show, and
Yeah.
yet I had nothing to do with creating it or even writing it really. But yeah, I really like starting things.
Hmm.
I think I'm I don't know. I think I'm kind of a I never really liked being told what to do, you know.
We're artists, aren't we?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
most of us, right? It's like I think if you get into art, you probably don't want like a nine
Yeah.
to five job, and you
Yeah.
don't want to go like the traditional route. And so, so yeah, you know, if you want to be a commercial artist,
Mhm.
there's kind of two tracks. Like either go the support route, and you know, you can be an editorial illustrator or a concept artist or you know, a comic book artist or something where it's like you might be helping execute someone else's vision, which
Mhm.
is very cool, and it's a huge thing. And it's not to say that that's less creative than starting your own thing. I don't think that at all. But honestly, I couldn't get work in that area for a
Yeah.
long time. I couldn't get anyone to get excited about my stuff. I couldn't get anyone to hire me to help them make their thing.
Yeah.
So like I felt like I was kind of just I had to start my own thing. And Shane felt that way too. Like we would read books about, you know, I don't know, like you know, Ben Stiller and that, and like some of the comedy Bang Bang guys or people
Mhm.
from the state or like any like creative people we looked up to. We'd read about how they moved to LA and like how they'd start out and they all
Yeah.
lived in an apartment together and they were all creative together. And you're like, what? And you're like, I want that. You know, like,
Yeah.
where's my partner? Where's my creative little group? And both Shane and I were looking for that. And finally, it was just like, you know what? I think it's just me and you. I
Yeah.
think, you know, this is it.
I know
And
what you mean.
so, yeah, so we just started our own thing, you know. And yeah, so and I think the more and then it's addictive, right? You do your own thing, and there's a
You just love it.
feeling
Yeah.
to yeah, it's addictive. And so there was, you know, I've made so many weird monetary decisions based off of, you know, passion for doing my own thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, yeah, that's definitely I've been bitten by the bug, you know.
Yeah. And as a driven artist, there is the one thing that every younger and admittedly professional artist is afraid of, and that is feedback and criticism. Now, I've never made a
Yeah.
perfect anything. You've never made a perfect anything. No one I've
How
ever
dare you,
talked to.
sir? How
I
dare you?
know, except the Mid Festival, but besides that,
Thank you.
um,
Thank you.
you know, nobody I've ever talked to has made a perfect anything.
Right.
Um, the only perfect thing in the world is The Incredibles by Brad Bird, but I digress. So, um, as somebody who does not like being told what to do, as somebody who is so driven, did you find it difficult to learn how to accept criticism and feedback for your work?
You say did I as if I've conquered it and I am now on the other side and am at total peace with criticism. Yeah, criticism is so hard. And I think the more you care about something, the more it's going to affect you, right?
Hmm.
Like the more you put yourself into a project and then someone criticizes the project, it's only natural to take it personally. And it can really hurt, and it almost should hurt. But here's the thing: I think what I've learned is because you always hear from professionals, you can't take it personally. You can't take it
Yeah.
personally. I slightly disagree. I think you kind of have to take it personally. Just accept it. It's gonna hurt.
Hmm.
I don't think that's the problem. I think it's how you respond to the hurt and how you move forward with it. I think denying that you should feel anything or that there's some kind of, as a student or someone, and you're like, oh God, I guess I got to get over this. Um, I would say, I don't know. I've never gotten over it. I'm
Yeah.
32. I'm no old veteran, but I still hurts. So what I've gotten better at is yeah, responding to that hurt. And I think the best piece of information came from a manager I had that this was maybe like 2014, 2015. We were deep into Big City Greens, the pilot
Hmm.
on Big City Greens, and when you're in development, it's so hard because you're kind of alone, and it feels like you're up against these executives, and the executives want the thing to be good, and they want you to succeed. If you succeed, they succeed, but there's a lot of pressure to make the pilot good, and we were really at a low point with the pilot on Big City Greens, and we had a really just tough note session, and I
Hmm.
was so upset and just wanted to quit, and I was just furious and just exhausted.
Yeah.
And our manager like he told us they knew how upset we were, and they were like, come into our office. And we were like, you're on the other side of town. We never come into your office. We just do it over the phone. They were like,
Yeah.
come into our office. And this guy said, he was like, it's just information.
Hmm.
It's just information. It's neutral. If it hurts personally, that's okay. It means you care about it. But then divorce yourself from it and look at it objectively and realize it's just information. It
Yeah.
might not be right, but it also might not be wrong. So you might need to listen to it, and you might also need to decide that you don't need to listen to it. But either way, you need to be objective. You need to be objective about this, and you need to just treat feedback like it's information. And
Hmm.
I've held on to that. I think that's such valuable and like calming advice.
Yeah. I think that whenever I talk to somebody who talks about, and I know that you work at Disney, so whenever they talk about how evil the S&P department is, or
Right.
how they rip everything to shreds, or even when I, as a student at an animation school, meet somebody who worked for Don Bluth for 30 years, and they give me a piece of feedback, and I choose to take it personally, I always understand that even though it hurts, they are the ones at the end of the day who have been doing this for longer, and they're not doing it to hurt me. They're just saying how I can improve. You know what I mean? They're not trying to hurt.
Right.
They're not trying to say something like, oh, I hate this part because you're an idiot. They're trying to say,
Right.
look, I've done this. I want you to be successful, and this is what you're doing wrong. And I'll admit it's never easy. And I'm like, just like you said, I'm not somebody who's completely immune to feeling bad when somebody picks apart something I've done. But you have to sort of learn it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think I think it's easy to paint executives with a broad brush, just like it's easy to paint artists with a
Hmm.
broad brush, right? Because I think the best executives and the best way we can all give each other notes is to simply tell whoever's showing you their film or comic or stand up or whatever, just tell them how you felt.
Hmm.
Eric Coleman was the head of Disney for a long time, and he always gave good story notes. He would always say, like Act Two feels weird, or he'd say something like, "This is just how I feel as
Yeah.
one of your first audience members," and that was always helpful because it's like if I get a note that says this character isn't doing the right thing in the scene or something specific like
Hmm.
that. I think there's a couple things I think you need to do as a creative. You need to realize that this person is responding in a way that's hopefully honest. That's all you want. Honest
Hmm.
feedback. And then you as the creative have to decide, okay, is that the problem, the specific that they're calling out? That might be the problem, but it also might not be. Maybe they're just responding to that scene, and maybe it's because you didn't do a good job at setting it up, maybe back in Act One, or
Yeah.
maybe they're responding to a thing. So sometimes you hear about the note behind the note,
Hmm.
and um, and some executives or some just friends, you want to get feedback from anyone. Some people are good at giving you the note behind the note. They go, I didn't really like this scene, but I think it might be because of this, and they might be right. Other people are just going to give you the reaction. So I think it's feedback is just a wide spectrum of like data and going back to that information. It's just information, but I think it's up to whoever's creating the work, whoever's directing it, to kind of siphon through it, not disregard anything at first, just take everything at face value, give everything a shot, and then determine what's helpful
Yeah.
and what's not helpful. Because not all feedback is like written in stone, or even if the top guy says you've got to change this, that may or may not be true. As long as you can get to kind of the core of what whoever giving the feedback, whatever they're responding to, if you can get to the core of that,
Yeah.
I think that's what's important. Does that make
That is
sense?
that is really good advice, actually. Yeah, that is brilliant advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, like I said earlier, you've worked on Harvey Beaks with our good friend Carl Greenblatt. You've worked
Yeah.
on Gravity Falls. You've worked on Wander Over Yonder. But I would unfortunately I'm going to have to skip over those and get to Big City Greens, which is
Yeah.
currently airing on Disney Channel. New episodes soon. I
This
don't
this Saturday at
this
8 p.m.
Saturday.
I'll pick up that baton.
Yeah, is that
For the
tomorrow? Because I don't know if this episode will be up in time.
Okay, so that is tomorrow. So we'll just say Saturday. So you may be listening
Saturday.
this Saturday or Sunday. You missed it. Saturday night, 8 p.m. on Disney Channel for the next 9 weeks, people. New episodes. New
This will be
episodes.
done within the next 9 weeks. I promise that much.
Perfect. Perfect.
So you worked on this short, which sounds very similar to Big City Greens. It was called Welcome to Simpleton, right? And it was
Yeah.
very similar to Big City Greens. Characters sort of sounded like they had the same design and stuff. It sort of sounded like the same premise. And did you rework it to turn it into Big City Greens because the studio I guess on the subject of criticism they didn't like it,
Yeah.
or because they're very similar, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're yes and no. I guess so yeah, Shane and I worked on it was a full pilot, 11
Yeah.
minute pilot for Disney before Big City Greens. And long story short, a year and a half in, tons of work, tons of jokes, tons of thought, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
The studio decided, what, it's just not working.
Yeah.
They gave us the option to make some changes, and we thought, you know what? No, I think there's kind of a core fundamental disagreement, and let's just part ways,
Yeah.
and it sucked, but it wasn't.
Was
You
it
know,
was it Disney that you pitched it to?
yeah,
Yeah.
this was all at Disney. But the top guy was like, "Hey, I really like you guys, and I want you to come up with something else." And it was like a really really tough time because it's like someone just I don't know, takes your dog out behind the shed and takes care of them, and just
Old
like,
Yeller
you can get a
style.
new dog,
Yeah.
just get a new dog. It's fine. Isn't
Yeah.
that won't be that be fun to get a puppy? And you're like, oh
Yeah.
my god, it was just horrible. And so the thought of like doing another one, DJ Khaled style, it's like another one. Like I didn't want to do that. It was just so
Right.
upsetting, and so we gave it some thought, and what we realized was like, oh, there's a lot of what we're sad about in losing in that first show. We're really responding to like the
Mhm.
themes of the show, the themes of the character. There was a lot of like small town themes. There was themes about kind of your family is who you're with, whether
Yeah.
they're related to you or just close friends or neighbors. It was kind of this like one executive pitched Welcome to Simpleton back to us as the Muppets meets Parks and Rec, and I was like, oh, that's good. So anyway, we realized we were like, even though we're sad about our baby being passed on, we could take some of the themes and some of the messages we wanted and some of the inspiration from our
Hmm.
childhood and hometown, and maybe we could package it in a different way. Maybe it was the skin, the packaging of that first show that wasn't working. And sure enough, it worked. It's on TV now, so I think
Yeah,
the other
it
one's
worked.
not
Yeah,
on TV.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
so
think
it
that
worked.
Welcome to Simpleton will ever see the light of day?
I don't know. It's tricky. I think like part of it is, just you can only do so much. You can only spend your time on so many projects. And part of me thinks that's a project that had its time and it's
Yeah,
passed and I've moved on. And then there's times where I go, well, it's a project that never got its time.
fair enough.
I need to give it a shot. So I'm still on the fence. I think there was some really great things about the show that Shane and I really liked, and so maybe.
Do you think that the pilot would ever see the light of day?
Probably not, just because looking back, I just cringe at it personally. Like, and I probably Shane would too. It's like we love the world we created and the characters, and we made a couple little shorts, even like these little shorts before making the pilot. Maybe we'd share it one day. It's always hard to look back at your old work, right? And you look at it
Yeah,
with the knowledge you have now, and you go, oh, why did we do that? And that's not even
yeah.
funny, and you know.
The first three episodes of this show are painful to watch. The
And
first three
really,
episodes
yeah, right. Well,
are painful.
you're finding your footwork. Big City Greens. Like I'll say it, season two's better. I think it's gotten better,
Hmm.
and I think that you see that with most shows. I feel like most shows, season ones, might be a little rough, and then like you look at The Office. It's for me, it's seasons like 2 through 5. Just
Yeah,
like oh baby, The Simpsons. People talk about seasons 1 through 3 as a thing, as
yeah,
kind of an era, and then seasons like
yeah.
four
The
and five
Merkin
through
era is
eight.
different than the
Yeah,
Groening era, and yeah,
exactly. And it's like I like that about TV. I like the kind of changes and people argue about I liked it better back then or this or that, and I think that's kind of part of the joys of TV. Same with like comic strips.
yeah.
You see changes. You look at Garfield back in like 1988. You're like, my God, who's this sick cat?
Back
you
when
know?
John was a cartoonist, yeah.
Yeah,
So could you promise live here on Cartoons versus COVID,
Yeah.
if this
Ooh.
episode reaches 69,420,000 views, that you
Yes,
would
please.
release Welcome to Simpleton's pilot?
Ooh. You know what? I'll tell you what. If this podcast reaches 69,420 views, the perfect amount, we will definitely release something of Welcome to Simpleton that we are proud of
One frame.
and that people will really like. No, we'll give you more than one frame.
Uh, Brilliant. So you are on the short list of um, of non-problematic cartoon creators who actually voiced the main character of their show, because
Oh
John Kristofferson
wow.
does not count as non-problematic. You're on the list. You got Alex Hirsch and Thurp Van Orman, everybody, and you are the voice, for those who don't know, of Cricket Green.
Yes, I am. Yes, I
And
am.
there he is.
There he is. Oh my God. Cricket, get out of here. I'm doing an interview. Put on some clothes. All right.
And as how is he not wearing clothes?
Hey, he's a little wild child.
Fair enough. I don't know. I'm not wearing clothes under this.
And this is audio only. So
That's fair. I'm
you can do
not. Neither
naked
of us are
jokes.
wearing clothes for those watching at home. To be
Oh
completely
no.
fair. So, do you, as executive producer, and we'll get into what that means in just a little bit because I really don't know.
Yeah, because
Um,
I'm hoping to find out myself.
do you, when you're recording your, a Tilly or Bill or Grandma or anybody's lines, do you stand in the studio with them and sort of do that bounce back and forth because you are present for most of the process?
Yeah. Like, for the first few years of production on the show, it was always Shane and I voice directing. So, like, if
Yeah.
I was doing Cricket, Shane would be voice directing me. And then if, say, Bob Joles was in the booth recording for Bill, Shane and I usually both would be on the other side of the glass voice directing him. So I would definitely jump in and bounce lines back and forth. But yeah, in the last year, we've kind of just because Shane and I have gotten so busy, and we're trying to expand the show. Our supervising director, Monica Ray, has stepped up to do a lot of voice acting. But yeah, the voice acting process on our show is just so important.
Yeah. And the voices in the show are fantastic. I mean, really, I'm not trying to flatter you, but the way that the characters bounce back and forth, of course, that has something to do with the writing as well, is very kinetic and it's very energetic. And
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
why I have to ask: were you always going to be the voice of Cricket? Was it always just going to be you?
Oh yeah. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
good question. No, we weren't quite sure. Shane and I, we're like we're producers first. Like we're
Mhm.
creative producers first, and like actors or anything else is second. And so we wanted the best person to play cricket, and we
Mhm.
and we had kind of a voice in mind because I had been doing it. I'd been like pitching the character and kind of developing this voice, and it was kind of based off of Daniel Johnston. I love like his work, his music, and like Arlo Guthrie and Woody
Mhm.
Guthrie, like more so, yeah, like Alice's Restaurant, like weird,
Yeah.
like ha ha, I'm gonna play my little guitar, and I hope that I can tell a little story for you. That like weird kind of legendary
Yeah.
country voice, not Cletus, but kind of kind of I don't know,
Twangy,
something, yeah,
twangier, yeah,
twangy
twangier than like slower.
and very
Yeah.
Americana. It just felt very. Same with Daniel Johnston. It was like, hey everyone, I wrote you a couple songs, and
Yeah.
I hope you like them. I just love that. I always love that music. Even Tilly comes from Tilly and the Wall, a great band. Just love music, and anyway, so we weren't sure. With Welcome to Simpleton, we had an actor that we wanted to play the main character, and we never got to the casting process.
Mhm.
So we felt like the main character in Welcome to Simpleton was we never fully got to pitch that character because he never had a voice. It'd be like pitching Donald Duck. It's just like he's got a funny voice and he's a
Yeah.
duck, but imagine his voice is hilarious or something. Like it's such a part of his character. So
Yeah.
with Big City Greens, when we were gonna do it again, another one. It's like we wanted to do something. We wanted to do it differently. So we were like, okay, we have to get the actors in soon, and we have to hear the voice. And so we tried to like create voices ourselves. And Shane
Mhm.
would always like voice Bill and Remy, and I would always voice Cricket and Tilly and Grandma, and so we kind of had versions of these voices in our heads, and then we went through a full casting process on Cricket, and it was kind of grueling. It was tough, and then it became clear to Shane and I. It was like, oh my gosh, I have to do the voice. Like
One day
I,
you said, "I am Cricket." Oh my God.
I know it felt. I mean, it's like it felt like such a,
Revelation.
well, yeah, and I felt. I'm sure it felt silly to other people. Like, oh look, they went through the casting process, and guess who got the job? Chris
Yeah.
did. But we were really honest about it. We weren't sure if I was the right guy for the
Hmm.
job, and we were. It turns out I was, just because we were closest to it, and so yeah. Sorry, I feel like every question you ask, I just ramble on
No, it's
until.
no, it's that's how interviews work. I mean, that's how these
That's
interviews work.
true. Well, that's true. But like,
If I was just like,
yeah.
"So you're the voice of Cricket," you'd be like, "Yeah," and I'd be like, "All right, so
Next
ladies and
question.
gentlemen."
You joke, but I have done interviews where that is the
The
that's
way
the
it goes.
format. Yeah.
Can I hear the temp voices that you did for Tilly and Grandma? Do you remember what they
Oh
sounded
yeah,
like?
well, if this is Grandma's just kind of a like lower cricket, get in here, cricket. What are you doing, Grandma? Sorry, boy, you were messing around, and I don't like it. Like,
Yeah,
and then Artemis came in, and it's like, oh, Artemis is hilarious and can do it. It's not like I said, Artemis, do it like this. She
yeah.
just came in and she did an even better version of that. Tilly's a little different. We always used to pitch Tilly like this. We give her a low and very monotonous, deadpan
Yeah.
voice. And there was kind of this. That was in our heads, and even early versions of the pilot, like Tilly was really like way more bizarre than she is now. She looked weirder and everything.
Hmm.
And Mariev came in and actually did a voice that was pretty different, very deadpan and monotone, because that's what we were directing her to do. But she did it in this higher pitched, kind of cute but weird version, and it
Yeah.
just slayed us. Like in the room, we were just dying laughing, and but it took us a bit to be like, wait, yeah, this is the voice. It,
Yeah.
it, it was like I mean, actually, it didn't take us a bit. We knew pretty just right away that was just like, oh, this is so different than what we've been talking about for the past
Yeah.
like year and a half, and yet who cares? Throw it out. This is better. And it was a great lesson in show running of like you should always have a vision in your head, but be careful because someone might beat that vision.
Yeah.
And if you're not aware of it, you might miss out. So have something in your head, but don't be so tied to it that inevitably when someone thinks of, guess what, you're not the smartest person in the room, none of us are. When someone beats your idea, try to recognize it and then and grab onto it. And that was definitely Mary Ev, and the voice of Tilly. But it's funny, we still pitch Tilly in the writers' room the same way. We're like, and then Tilly comes up like this. It's like, well, she doesn't really talk like that. But, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard the story of how they got. I forget his name. Charles Marinette is the guy that does Mario's voice. Is it Marinette? Is how you say his last name?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Martinet or so, Charles M, who does the voice of
Yeah,
Mario.
right.
When he was
The M stands
auditioning,
for Mario.
yeah, when he was auditioning for Mario, uh, they were in the Nintendo headquarters. I think it was in New York City back then, and like the casting call said Italian plumber from like the Bronx or something. So everybody would go in and be like, "Hey,
Uh,
Mario over here. What's going
totally.
on?" And he went and he's like, "It's me, Mario. It's spaghetti and the baba da da." And it was like so different that they're like, "That's what it's gonna be. That's it."
That's so funny. So he just lost the kind of New York thing.
Yeah,
And
he
he's like, I'm
just
going to go more like friendly, more
yeah.
higher pitch. Yeah, it's like,
There's a great
it's great.
I'll put it in the description, but there's a great article or a video he did with Big Think, which is this great YouTube channel
That's
where he
right.
talks about it, and it's brilliant. But yeah, no, he just went in and he was like, everybody's doing this, I'm gonna do this, and it's the difference that counted.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, I got to talk just real quick about Bob Jones as well. Like,
Hmm.
we had for all these characters, we listened, no joke, hundreds of auditions, and our casting directors listened to even more. They just, I mean, maybe thousands for some of these characters, because you really want to cast a wide net, and you want to explore, and you want to really, you want to do it right. I think Scorsese says it's 80% casting, and I think
Yeah,
that goes for any kind of hiring. It's like if you can hire the right person or cast the right person, everything else should be easier if you've
yeah,
made the right decision. So Bob came in and just immediately his submission stood out. Like in that first wave of just looking at hundreds, his like immediately stood out. And I think it's just like all of our other actors, our core actors were so important to like really listen to your gut. It was like,
mhm.
yes, what does the voice sound like? And yes, like can they act? Like that's
Those are
kind of it.
helpful.
That's
Yeah, those are
that's like
helpful.
the two pillars of
Yeah,
any voice actor. But it was really like there's something about Bob's voice that was like, oh, this guy really cares, and he's very, he's like Bill in a way. He's like I there was a day where Bob came in to maybe do a second audition or something because it's a long process of casting a show. And I was like, I'm going to go in there with you, Bob, if you don't mind, and we could read lines together. Bill and Cricket, and we go in there, and I have a copy. I think he had an extra copy of the script or something. He gave it to me, and I took out a highlighter and I start highlighting all the Cricket lines. And he looks at me because he's been a voice actor for years, and he goes, you only need to highlight the name of the character. You don't have to highlight the line. Like that's a little
yeah.
like pro voice actor tip because I'm not I'm still I don't consider myself a voice
Take
actor in a
notes,
weird way.
people at home. Take notes.
Right? Yeah. So he's like you only have to you only have to highlight the name, or that's what he preferred or whatever. And
Mhm.
I said, oh, thanks, Bob. I could learn a lot from you. And he goes and he said it in the most genuine way. He said, kind of under his breath, he was like, I think I could learn a lot from you boys. And it was just like it felt so
That's so
fatherly and
sweet.
so
Yeah,
sweet. And in these auditions, there's a lot of emphasis on funny and big laughs and
yeah.
big. Everyone's desperate and scared that the pilot's gonna fail. So it's like there's this want to like go big, and I hope people like it. And there was something about Bob that was like there was a heart there that
Yeah. The
immediately was
restraint.
like, yeah, it was really great,
Yeah.
and I think it's so satisfying to see fans like react to Bill in that way because I go, yeah, that's how I felt too,
Mm.
and so it's cool to when people say, I wish I get letters. You know, I wish Bill was my dad. You know, just like really really sweet. You know, and I think there's something to yeah Bob's just heart that is great.
Well, I think that he's a very sweet character as well. I think like I said, I think all the voice actors and actresses do a great job. Um, and so, of course, we're on the subject of Big City Greens, and just as striking as how great the voice cast is the fact that I would argue the show doesn't look like anything else, not just on Disney Channel, but on any other channel. All the characters are these sort of like colorful blobs. Everything's a different color. At the beginning, I remember, people thinking like, oh, they're just going with the Simpsons color scheme, but no, everybody looks
Right.
different. And if I can draw a comparison to anything, it reminds me a lot of the Muppets, actually, the way that the characters are designed and
Yeah.
the way that you did the coloring. How did you come about with going with this art style instead of maybe a more realistic one, with the fact that the show is so down to earth?
Yeah, yeah. Muppets definitely a huge inspiration. I think it was a mixture of a bunch of things, right? Like any of us. You know, Shane and I are just big fans of cartoons. Growing up, we liked fun, visual cartoons, and and then coming off of Welcome to Simpleton, which was the pilot we did before, that was very inspired by the Simpsons by Muppets
Mm-hmm.
by the kind of Muppety characters. They were very much so like non-human,
Yeah.
and so creating Big City Greens, it was like, oh, this kind of could we do a human version of this kind of weird Muppety
Mm-hmm.
version? Anyway, so like we didn't give the characters noses, and we wanted to keep up with those like Muppet colors.
Yeah.
The Simpsons thing is tricky because we it was in black and white. You know, the show is just storyboards and drawings and maybe rough color sketches, but there's nothing like locked down. And I brought in my wife Cassandra to help color the characters, and she did a bunch of versions because I was like, I want this show to look like candy. I just wanted it to look like
Yeah.
candy. You know, like let's have fun. Like remember Klasky Chupo and like
Yeah.
weird, like 90s Nickelodeon, and you look back and you're like, good lord, the sky is blue, and like, oh, that is a green shirt, buddy. Like, good lord, kind of garish, but in this fun way. And Cassandra did all this exploration stuff, and the Simpsons yellow thing is so funny, and we knew it instantly. We were like, oh god, we'll never live this down. But it became just a it became like a just a simple utilitarian decision to make
Mhm.
the greens yellow.
Yeah.
And it really was. It was like yellow. If they're all yellow, they look like a family. If they're all the same color, it could have been any color.
Yeah.
But what we chose yellow because yellow, it's kind of neutral and it pops against anything, just about
Yeah.
any background. And it felt very utilitarian, but we were also like, oh crap, we're forever tied to like Minions and Simpsons and even SpongeBob's yellow, Big Bird's
Yeah.
yellow, but it just felt right, and we thought, you know what, people are gonna say whatever they're gonna say. It was like same with casting me as Cricket. It was like as long as we do our due diligence and try to explore, if we land on a decision that feels like people could say, well, that's just the first decision they came upon. Like as
Mm.
long as it's a calculated decision and it feels like we've done our due diligence, it doesn't bother me. It's
Yeah.
funny. We get comments about Remy looking like Irwin, and I'm just like, yep, yeah, right.
Oh,
Like
from
Irwin
Billy and
from
Mandy?
Billy and Mandy. Yeah,
Oh, my
yeah.
God, I never even put that together. I
And I
guess
kind of,
so.
yeah, and I kind of think, I
I've
feel
never
like
noticed
you're
that.
right. And
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me too much, and I hope it doesn't bother the people that watch the show,
Yeah.
or be too distracting. But I do think you just run the risk whenever you make anything new that people want to make comparisons. I don't even see it as a bad thing. I think our brains are just kind of designed to kind of categorize and organize, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's I think time just heals all wounds.
Yeah,
And
I
I
guess
think
so.
whenever you're new, you're new, so people want to kind of compare because you're new and there's no like context to it. I learned that on Gravity Falls. When it came out, people were like, another regular show. And I remember thinking, what? I'm like, what? This has nothing to
Yeah.
do with regular show. But then it was like, oh, I see. People were kind of responding to like the way the eyes are drawn or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I remember
And
people were like, "It's Twin Peaks for kids," and I was like, "Have you seen Twin Peaks? What are you
right?
talking about?"
And it's kind of like, kind of. It kind of is, but is
I guess.
that's not a bad thing, you
Yeah,
know. So I think sometimes that feedback is maybe seen as it can be interpreted as criticism. But honestly, I don't know. I think it's maybe just people trying to
categorize. Yeah, no.
categorize.
I
Yeah,
mean, in 20 years, there's going to be three or four more shows with yellow characters, and they'll say the same thing. They'll say this, yada 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 shows, just like Big City Greens, and they said that when
exactly.
the Simpsons came out about about the Legos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Although,
weird. I think once you reach a certain age where you look back on childhood and you see all the patterns
yeah,
kind of repeat themselves for kids, you know. It's the same reason people go, when Mad Magazine was good, it was when I was a kid. It's that kind of way of thinking where it's like, yeah, I guess so, but maybe there's some bias and we're all products of our time and that kind of thing.
I remember people saying, "Remember when Marmaduke was good?" And I say no. Um, and
I say no, Marmaduke has always been good and it always will be good.
yes,
That,
that's where I was
that
going with
big
that.
old, that big old.
On the subject of Remy kind of looking like Irwin, all I'll say is
Right.
Maxwell Adams is a violent man. I would watch your back. You never know.
I know.
He could
I
be in this
once.
very room.
That's true. That's true. I don't
No,
want
he's
to.
a wonderful
I,
wonderful guy.
I I don't want to upset anyone with a name as cool as Maxwell Adams.
Oh yeah,
That's a code I live by.
oh yeah.
My name's
Um,
Chris. No one's scared of that. So I gotta watch my back.
so like I alluded to before, you're a EP, you're executive
Yeah,
producer on Big City Greens. You and your brother and Robert Renzetti, the
that's
pride of Addison,
right.
Illinois.
That's
Um,
right.
thank God about it. We have a running joke on the show. We'll get to the Rob Renzetti thing in a minute. But how do you find your position as an EP, and what is an EP for those who don't know, meaning me?
Yeah. Sure. No, that's a good question. You know, Hollywood's a weird place where you know, you can have a title without doing the work.
Yeah,
So it'd be like, if you hired a plumber and there was one plumber that kind of stood around and then there was another plumber that did the work, like, but they're both titled plumbers. That's kind of producer titles run the gamut, is what I'm saying.
hmm
Sometimes a producer title can mean they kind of consulted, and other times a producer credit can mean they were there every day, all day long, running the ship.
yeah,
So with Big City Greens, executive producers, and with most TV shows, executive producers are the showrunners. Show running is strangely not a title, but executive producer is. So
yeah,
yeah, so Shane and I and Rob in those in the first few years, we were boots on the ground running the show.
hmm
What was great and is great and will always be great about Robert and Zeddy is he was helping us run the show, but he wasn't grabbing the wheel. He was letting us make the creative
yeah,
decisions and he was helping support us, which is awesome. And then he left the show and then it became just Shane and I. But yeah, it's being an executive producer or being a showrunner, if you're really involved, and most executive producers are, you're responsible for everything.
hmm
So you might not have to do everything. You've got a bunch of people to do their jobs, but you are responsible for everything.
hmm
So you're responsible for the quality of the show. You're responsible for how funny the show is, right? And the
yeah,
creative writing and producing and making sure all the designs are good and it can be shipped to Korea on time. But then you're also in charge of hiring people. You're in charge of, sadly, firing people. You're in charge of helping make scheduling decisions. You are responsible for all things, so you have to consult with legal teams and S&P and HR at times, and
yeah,
there's when I say you're responsible for everything, you really are. You're responsible for your crew. You're responsible for the culture of the workplace, and hopefully you're responsible for the success or maybe failure of the show. I remember Jorge Gutierrez, which is another just fantastic.
That was our first guest when I was talking about the worst
Was it?
episode. That was our first guest. He wrote my college recommendation.
Oh
Yeah,
no, I hope it wasn't the worst because
it is the
I
worst
don't know.
episode.
Jorge just yelled into the mic for 60 minutes or something. I don't know, but Jorge's fantastic. Just it's a wise, smart, creative, funny person, and I met him. This is like a great Jorge Gutierrez meeting story. We met in Bogota, Colombia. We were like at this SIGGRAPH conference together, and
Yeah.
this conference was nice enough to fly some like LA animators down, and that's where I met Jorge. And Jorge told me one night we were talking about show running, and he said, "You're responsible for everything." He's like, "You're responsible. Not only are you responsible, but what did he? I don't know how he prefaced this, but he just said, if the show's a success, you will get more credit than you're due. And if the show's a failure, you will be blamed more than you should be.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, and to me, it just meant you're the one with the weight of the show on your shoulders. So
Yeah. Atlas in a way.
right. So to me, I took Jorge's advice as, if it's successful, make sure you share that success. And if it's a failure, try not to point your fingers at too many people.
Yeah.
That was my kind of takeaway. And Jorge has always just been such a like I don't know, he's got a good moral compass. I really
Very
like.
kind. He's a very kind
Yeah,
man. He's wonderful.
I like people who just have clear lines in the sand, and so I took that advice to heart. And again, this is the point where I think I've made my point, and I've forgotten your question.
The question was, your credit card number is.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
So no, the thing I always ask people who worked with Rob,
Yeah.
and because we love King Rob here, is
Hell yeah.
do you have a favorite Rob Renzetti story? Do you have a good Rob Renzetti story?
Oh my gosh, I have so many Rob Renzetti stories. Okay, here's a good one. This is a good one because it's also silly and it can be shared publicly without too much humiliation on
That's good.
anyone's side. Yeah.
I don't want to get sued for anything. He's a nice
Right.
man.
So early on in Big City Greens, it's so funny. We were put up in this building on Brand Avenue in Glendale where we shared space with Yellow Pages. It was
Yeah.
so weird. Like Yellow Pages had offices in this building, and then we were put on a floor, literally, that when Disney greenlit the show, they didn't have enough space. They were like, we don't know if we have production space for you. And so they put us in some temporary offices, and as we hired more and more people, like we had to be moved. So we got moved to this office, and
Was
anyway,
this, if I can interrupt, was this at the old Glendale office? The
yes.
one that, the one that's right
Maybe
next
you
to the
visited?
hills. The one that's right next to the hills, next to the Disney studio with the giant hat. I forget the exact address. Sonora
No,
Drive, right? Sonora Drive.
there's Sonora. Yeah, no one show up to any of these places. Yeah, there's one.
Please don't.
There's Disney buildings everywhere. Look to your
Yeah.
left, look to your right. One of those buildings is owned by Disney.
Disney
But,
owns the building I live in. Disney owns.
yeah, your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we were in this weird building, and I say all this just because it was just a weird, scrappy time, and it was kind of fun. And we were in an area, these Disney offices that literally a TV show had never been made there.
Yeah.
There was like dust on everything. Like it had been locked up for years, and they were
Right.
like, they found a way. They're like, we found some space. I think you can work here. So we were like, fantastic. We'll take it. Like we're just excited to make a show. And but those early days were like the most stressful. And I remember one morning we would do storyboard check-ins, oftentimes like 9 a.m. and we're gonna be in the room for 3-4 hours, maybe all day, working on a board. And she and I are like just nervous those days. Like, okay, is everything in check? And it's like 9:10, and everyone's here except Rob. And 9:15, and where's Rob? Where's Rob? Like he's not one to be late. This is
Yeah.
weird. And he shows up, and we go, Rob, where were you? We were gonna start at 9, and he's holding a Jamba Juice, like ice cream mega treat, and he
Right.
goes, the traffic was really bad. And we're like, where'd the Jamba Juice come from, Rob? You know, I think it would have been on late if you didn't get some Orange Julius mega gulp. Like, what are you doing? And it was
Brilliant.
just great, and it was such needed levity at a very stressful time of just seeing Rob Renzetti hold this giant, pink ice cream at 9 in the morning, and then lie about it. Sorry.
It's true. They teach you in Buddhism seeing Rob Renzetti with a large ice cream is probably the best.
It's a sign. It's a
It's a
gift,
sign.
and you need to take that in. Don't let that opportunity pass.
So, Chris Houghton, you have given some very, very valuable advice. And
Thank you.
unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up. But before we do, I would love to ask if there is somebody who is listening to this podcast and they're both wooed by the sound of our sultry voices, what advice would you give them if they were looking to break into the animation industry?
Yeah. Well, I think my advice would be exactly that. Just try to break in. I think a lot of people, they'll reach out to me like for advice on how to get a show and stuff like that. And I think keep those dreams, keep those aspirations, set your sights high. I don't want to tell anyone otherwise. But just don't make it your first step. Just break in, get a job, get an internship, get a job in production, get a job as a storyboard revisionist or helping a director or just anything you could get, because whatever you get, if you're not working in the industry and you have large aspirations in that industry, just first get in. You'll learn so much at any position. I would say the lower the position, probably the better. You're going to be overwhelmed. If you're anything like me, you're going to have a panic attack every day at work because you're like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I can do this. I was so nervous and so overwhelmed by everything. My first job was a storyboard revisionist at Nickelodeon, and I just learned so much. I learned so much by watching other people, by working on other storyboards, and I do things now in my job that I benefit from the knowledge I learned back on Fanboy and Jum Jum, 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
I just think no job is too small, especially when you're excuse me, starting out. This is audio only, right? People get to hear all of my burps.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I didn't hear any unless you
Thank
just
you.
mentioned it. So
Okay, good. Yeah, just rewind about 10 seconds and listen closely.
I'm not editing this out. That's actual work.
Hey, listen, people, it's early in the morning. What do you expect? Just had coffee. But no, like I just think it's so valuable to get in and try to, those lower positions. Sometimes some people, take them and just like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming, and some people might poo-poo them. And I'd say don't poo-poo anything, people. Okay, if there's one takeaway from this podcast, don't poo-poo anything.
Slap it on a t-shirt.
That's right. If you get an internship and it's temporary, and I don't know, maybe you're 25, 26, you're back in school and you get an internship and you're working with people that are 22 and you're like, oh God, I'm behind, or I'm 30 or whatever. It's like, just get your foot in the door, try and learn and observe, and just know that you're getting the first building blocks to wherever you want to go. You'll get there, just, but you got to take it slow, and you got to fight through it.
I was once at a Chinese food restaurant, and there was a sign on the wall that said the master at anything was once a student. So I believe that.
Ooh, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. And the
All
lesson
right.
you learned that night was how much you could eat and not feel horrible about yourself.
The lesson I learned that night was about 3 weeks later, the North Garden in Falmouth, Massachusetts was shut down for health code violations.
Yep. And the lesson you learned was how lucky you were.
Yeah, and how lucky I was.
The horrible fate that fell upon so many. May
Ladies and
God
gentlemen,
bless their souls.
Chris Houghton is the creator and voice of Cricket Green on Big City Greens for Disney Channel. New episodes every Saturday for the next 9 weeks, unless you're listening
Ooh.
sometime in 2000 and a year, but 2020.
Right.
He's also the illustrator of Reed Gunther, and was a pleasure to talk to you today. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Griffin, thank you. This is great, man. Very fun. I wish you the best.
Thank you very much. If you are at all interested in donating, please take a look at the links in the description below. Again, they are to help raise money for those fighting against the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a link to the CDC donation network, as well as the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center up here in Manchester, New Hampshire. Our next guest will be Dan Povenmire, creator and voice of Heinz Doofenshmirtz on Phineas and Ferb, the date of which I have not decided yet, but we'll get it done. Until next time, thank you very much. Stay safe, stay home, and we will talk to you guys later. Goodbye.